I know what my reaction was to seeing the movie, and obviously you're predisposed to like your films, but I sense that there's something, I sense a different degree of passion about this. Like, you're very pleased with how this came out.
Yeah, I am. I mean, the movie for me is a summation of my life in science fiction. Started when I was 17 years old, made an 8mm little sound movie called Firelight.
You made it at 17, an 8mm little sound movie called Firelight. It's like 2 hours and 20 minutes long.
Oh yeah, it was about an hour and a half too long, but it was about UFOs when I was 17. So the subject is something that has been with me for most of my young adult life.
Getting to that, your interest in what you called, I'm going to make sure I have it right, what you called the great unknown, right?
Right.
Can be traced a little bit to one specific event when you were a little boy.
Well, it was just the event was simply, I was about 5 or 6 years old. I don't really know what age I was, but I was living in New Jersey. And we left New Jersey when I was like 9, so I must have been somewhere in the middle. And when your father comes in the bedroom and wakes you up from a sound sleep and puts you in a car, just my father and me drove through the night. Not long. I kept saying, "Dad, what is it? What is it?" He said, "It's a surprise." And he stopped at a big park, maybe it was Asbury Park, and he took me up, and there were people in the middle of the night with picnic blankets, and they were lying down on the grass looking up at the sky, and it was the Perseus meteor shower. That was the beginning of my love affair with the sky.
And so what do you, the best you can recall, or even as you grew older then, you'd see it, and what do you imagine? Where do you see up there? Where does your mind take you?
Well, you know, something's interesting. I don't really have strong memories of that moment. My father tells me the story more than I remember the event, but I do remember feeling scared because it was dark and it was completely out of character with our family routines. So right away it was kind of, I remember how shocked I was, but I also remember seeing these points of light darting across the sky. You know, one light every 40 or 50 seconds. And I just remember thinking that was one of the most extraordinary things I had ever seen.
So it's extraordinary and mysterious simultaneously.
At the same time. It was the unknown, but my docent into the unknown was my father, who was an electrical engineer, but a tremendous fan of science fiction.
We have a moderately competent producer on this piece, and he found one of these.
Oh my God, because that is what my father read, okay? This Galaxy, Analog, and Amazing Stories. Those 3 periodicals is what he sort of, and our bathroom was piled high, on the little behind, right? This high with these magazines.
And but this is the kind of magazine you would have read.
Yeah, I would have been read to from mainly the analog magazines.
And this one's got a Ray Bradbury story, the fireman, which we know became Fahrenheit 451.
That's right.
Yeah. You describe a little bit, I like the middling term, that I guess in Close Encounters, you said you struck a middle ground calling it science speculation, right? Not quite science fiction, not quite science fact. Disclosure Day feels like stepping it up a level or taking it to the, of course it's not science, it's a fiction, it's a movie, but
well, it's a movie, and it is, the characters. I wrote the story. The characters and the events in the film are fictitious, of course, but even more than Close Encounters in terms of my own belief system, the credibility and what the movie is about, which is, isn't it about time that we are told what's been happening for the last 80, 90 years in our oceans and in our skies. The movie is built on a foundation of truth, in my humble opinion.
Some of it is your imagination, David Koepp, the screenwriter's imagination. But a lot of what happens in the movie to the characters we're following mirrors the stories that have been pretty consistently told for the last 8 decades.
The thing about conspiracy theories and urban legends, the Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot, UFOs, all kinds of things that, as one of the characters in Close Encounters says, we would like to believe in. All that is kind of wiped away by the consistency of descriptions and eyewitness observations about what has happened to people, or what they've observed happening, or what has happened to their lives and how it's turned some people's lives upside down. The consistency since Roswell, since the Roswell crash in 1947, has for me, there's nothing about it. I mean, there's pockets that, of course, are conspiracy theories, but the actual idea that we have been under observation and being interacted with is something that I have kind of always hung on to as a core truth, and inspired movies like Close Encounters, like E.T., even in a farcical way, in a comedic way, like the Men in Black series of films that I co-produced. And then leading up to, as I call it, my science fiction summation movie, which is Disclosure Day.
So then, if this is your science fiction summation movie, then that clever tagline of Close Encounters, the "We are not alone," and the use of the language "You are not alone" here is quite deliberate and seemingly meaningful.
Yeah, well, it's meaningful for me, certainly, and it's also meaningful for a lot of people who really believe that we have been in communication, but just not been told, with, basically, off-planet civilizations. I think about this: when the great unknown is actually known by some, but not known by all of us, it's that inequity that got me to write the story for Disclosure Day.
I think being even almost sympathetic, certainly understanding to why there is this feeling that we have to keep those who have the known information. There's some sympathy for why they have to keep it.
Well, the movie takes both positions. The movie takes the position of the believers or the curious, the ones that have been certainly deeply affected by this. The Emily Blunt character, she plays Margaret Fairchild. Something has happened to her. She has no idea what it is. She's just like all of us. But strange things are starting to happen to her, and she has to try to understand why this has upended her life. And almost in a second, her entire life goes from normal to supernormal. Or just say, goes from normal to, kind of incredible, just in a matter of a glance between a cardinal and herself. And then everything changes from that moment on, and she needs to know why. And then, of course, there's a faction in the film that represents a pretty good position of why, possibly because of ontological shock, social dislocation, if this truth were just known overnight, if the government announced, yes, we have been keeping this from you since 1947, that would mess up a lot of people. And the movie also takes the position of the church. What does this do to the fundamental beliefs that many of us have? And, is God our God only on this planet, or is God a God for every system where there's civilization, intelligent life, and even developing life?
The nun in the picture is a really important role. Includes the line, right. She's quoting text, but right. Ending with "on Earth."
Right.
Right. I want to get a little bit back to the conspiracy theory idea, which I'm going to wipe that term out. But over the last 80 years, until recently, certainly the last 20 years, it would have been impossible for someone to check the story of someone else and then repeat it. So the consistency of these stories in a pre-internet era,
yes,
is fairly revealing.
It is very revealing, and it's also why Close Encounters is so dated, because it's a scene where the government tries to debunk in front of a lot of activists or really curious citizens that have had these sightings. The government basically comes out there and makes a pretty good case, and they say, no one's ever captured a car crash as it's actually happening. This is 1976. I made the movie, came out in 77. Nobody had camcorders in those days. And then nobody had smartphones with cameras in them. So today, with all of the technology that allows us all not just to be eyewitnesses to something, but our experience gets confirmed by our devices, because that's so different. A lot of people have been coming forward in government, in the military, in the Navy, in the Air Force, and going to Washington in 2023 and actually giving testimony under oath that something's happening that they cannot explain, and it is not our technology.
That House Oversight Committee hearing influenced you that now was the time to tell this story?
I think the House Oversight Committee really influenced me. What really got me back onto the subject of UFOs, now known as UAPs, unidentified anomalous or aerial phenomenon.
UFOs is better.
I like
right?
UFOs so much better
Yeah.
than UAPs.
Yeah, come on. Yeah.
UFO is just part of it's part of our culture.
It's part of the lexicon.
Global culture.
Yeah,
I think it was the New York Times story in December of 2017 that was written by Helene Cooper and Ralph Blumenthal and Leslie Keane, where the Tic Tac video was released for all of us to see that was taken by an F-18 Navy jet. The FLIR, the forward-facing infrared camera, captured this extraordinary event. And that went everywhere.
Navy jets pursued this.
They
object.
pursued it.
Yeah.
And they said it, and they started talking about how routine, this happened off of the Nimitz, off the coast of San Diego. And I think that's what really got me thinking about this again.
And this was also some components of that story, like a government program that had been defunded in 2012, turns out, no, still being funded, just entirely secretly.
Yeah, I don't have any direct insider knowledge from any sources whatsoever, because I'm not in those circles. But I cannot believe that it's the government that's hiding these secrets, because you can't keep a secret inside government.
It's hard.
You can't keep a secret among elected officials. You just can't keep the secrets. But you can keep the secrets in big tech companies, in aerospace, Defense Department, parts of the Pentagon. Those where the secrets can be kept, especially private contractors.
And that's what even the acknowledgement in that article, what this was a government contract given to a private firm to study this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the archive is. And the archive that is stolen by our whistleblower, played by Josh O'Connor, and also Como Domingo, this was taken from a contractor called Wardex, which stands for, it's crazy what it stands for, but it's a company we made up, which is representative of how we really think these secrets could have been kept so airtight all these decades.
Your screenwriter, David Koepp, who's really a sensational screenwriter, and he and I have a similar favorite movie, 3 Days of the Condor, Sidney Pollack's film with Robert Redford, and that suggests a giant conspiracy in the CIA of essentially a smaller CIA inside the CIA.
Yes.
Right? And maybe that seemed like a crazy conspiracy in 1975. That seems fairly tame and obvious today.
Isn't it interesting how eventually, if you wait long enough, all science fiction becomes nonfiction? It's really interesting how that kind of happens. We still don't have flying cars.
We don't have flying cars. That's right.
Back from Things to Come.
Right.
In the 1930s. We still don't have that. But a lot of the stuff that science fiction has planted in our imaginations has absolutely come true.
Have you ever had any sort of paranormal event in your life? Nothing?
Isn't that terrible?
Yeah.
I deserve I deserve a sighting.
Ben,
I need a sighting. I'm an ambassador for these guys, and they haven't shown themselves to me. I don't get that.
Yeah. That's a great point. Well, they're listening now, so maybe they'll.
I hope so.
You mentioned your credited story by Steven Spielberg, screenplay by David Koepp. So this story is yours. You wrote it, and where'd you write it?
I just wrote it the summer of 2023. I just sat down and spent 2 months writing. I wrote a 50, 60-page single-space story.
But literally, where did you write it? Like, on what manner did you write this out?
On my iPad.
In the little notes section of your iPad. And then,
well, everybody has it, right? We have a notes section.
Yeah.
That's where I wrote it. And then I printed it out and would read it and then go back to my iPad again. I mean, my handwriting is so bad. As I've gotten older, it's gotten so bad I can't read it myself. So I used to, when I was much younger, I used to write everything out longhand.
So you'd write a bit, you'd send it to your producing partners, and you'd write a little bit more?
I know.
Oh.
I kept it to myself.
Kept it yourself?
Nobody saw it until I
it.
was done. And I rewrote it several times, and then I called David Koepp. And I said, David, there's something I'd like to send you. And he said, I can't read it because I'm already working for you on something else. I'm writing Jurassic Park Rebirth. I don't have time. So I waited. And then when David was done with that, I gave him my story. And David, we saw eye to eye on it, and David jumped on board.
So 50, 55 pages, single-spaced, on on the notes section of your iPad.
Right.
It's pretty great.
Thank you, Steve Jobs.
There's no director I've talked to that hasn't said, no matter how advanced the story, complicated, your story is complicated, and David Koepp's got to write the screenplay, you got to see eye to eye, but nothing more important than casting in making a film. And Emily Blunt's been a leading lady. She's been a leading lady in action movies. Something here feels, I guess because it's a Steven Spielberg film, it feels bigger. She can carry a movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, she can carry a movie and she can share a movie, and that's very, very important. This is Margaret's story. It's also Josh O'Connor's story, but Margaret is sort of the one who has to go through the gauntlet of self-discovery before she could ever become a power, a force. I think this is a two-hander. But I also think it's an ensemble movie. I think it's very well balanced between Coleman Domingo's character, Colin Firth, who's incredible in the film as well, and Josh and Emily and Eve Hewson, who I think
plays Josh's girlfriend.
Very strong, and then Wyatt Russell's terrific and really funny.
One thing I don't like about any time I have an industry screening, it feels like people are less willing to laugh. I laughed a lot. Like, this is funny.
Yeah, well, life is funny sometimes, and especially when you paint yourself into a corner. Sometimes all you have to do when they're coming to get you is crack a joke, and it disarms the audience. I think it's important because this movie is really, it comes out of the gate. When you see the movie, it starts and it doesn't stop. It's like I say to everybody, make sure you put your seatbelt on when you watch Disclosure Day, because it's going to go real fast, and you have to keep up with it as it's racing ahead. You need laughs because of the tension. Jaws has laughs because it gets so tense. You got to give the audience a chance to not stress themselves into a nervous breakdown while they're watching any film. And North by Northwest is a great template for me. Alfred Hitchcock's North by Northwest, which is a really serious spy drama, but it's sprinkled with humor, and I think it's important.
And it's also a road picture where you got people trying to get to a place to do a thing, and
people chasing you to stop you from doing the thing.
There's thematically, to me, I'm sure this probably occurred to you since you made it, from Close Encounters and Richard Dreyfuss. My most memorable scene for me in that movie is him building the mud. How would you describe it?
He's building the Devil's Tower,
right,
basically out of bricks, mortar, paper mache, mud,
he can find.
Anything he can find.
And for Emily Blunt, it's inexplicable behavior, right? He can't explain it. And then she, all of a sudden, one point in the movie, I won't spoil it all, but she starts speaking Russian.
Yeah.
As if she's been speaking Russian all night, and she's speaking it to her boyfriend.
And she doesn't know Russian.
Right. And there's no AI trick there. She learned those lines.
Oh yeah, exactly. And she speaks Korean also. Yeah. And basically her character doesn't know Korean.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that she doesn't know she knows. But later she finds out why.
But it's very funny. Like, when it happens, even though it's significant, right, and it's revealing to us, it's also memorably funny to have, and that's partly based on her boyfriend's reaction.
Well, Wyatt Russell, who plays her boyfriend, also plays the audience that's watching Disclosure Day.
Right, that's right.
Because he doesn't know what's happening, and for a while we're not supposed to know. The audience is not supposed to know what is happening, so we get to experience, his dismay and bewilderment as he's going along on this ride. Right,
because when he betrays her, he's doing it for all the right reasons. He definitely thinks he's doing the right thing.
Yeah, and to many of us, he did do the right thing.
That's right. She needs help. Right?
Yeah.
Right. She's going mad. She needs help. She needs to be in a hospital. But come get her. Here's where she is. Yeah. But you're careful to point out, it's very tempting to draw all these connections to Close Encounters, but this is not a sequel to Close Encounters. But
it's not even close.
Yeah.
Not even close. Close Encounters, when I made Close Encounters, it was a wouldn't it be wonderful if kind of a movie. And I started with Close Encounters by starting with the ending. I wrote the ending of the picture first, and then to earn the ending, I created the characters and figured out how we could get to this place where this amazing sort of meeting between two civilizations occurs. But Close Encounters, resembles Disclosure Day in this regard. There is a secret group in Close Encounters that is keeping this away from the general public's knowledge. And the location for this first communion between extraterrestrials and human beings is happening in a place where the government or the people who are powerful enough to stage a train wreck with nerve gas on a derailment as an excuse to drive everybody out of the area, so this close encounter of the first, second, and third kind can be done in complete secret. And it stays secret. And at the end of Close Encounters, the world doesn't know what happened. The audience knows, the characters know, no one else knows what happened. Disclosure Day is about how, if somebody had the power and if somebody had possession of the entire archive of visual evidence of what's been happening for the last 80 years, what would happen if they decided to do a data dump across the entire world all at once? And the people who were trying to stop that data dump from happening, that is basically the core of this chase movie.
Close Encounters, you started work on it when?
I started writing it before Jaws.
The success of Jaws enabled you to make Close Encounters.
Yeah, I pitched Close Encounters before I read the book, the Peter Benchley book, Jaws. And everybody thought I was a crackpot. I mean, they weren't getting near that subject matter. But I was writing it, and I was writing ideas down, and in those days, all longhand. And then the success of Jaws, the second it was successful, I knew it was going to have legs. It was going to be a rat or a big tail and a fin for a long time. Sorry about that, folks. I knew that this was the time to try to get the people that had turned me down to reconsider Close Encounters.
So you wrote Close Encounters backwards. What about this? Did you know the ending of this first?
I knew what I wanted to say, and so I knew what the film was going to say, what it was going to be about, mainly what it had to say. And I started with what my idea had to say, and then I basically went back to the very beginning.
So not quite the same process.
Not quite the same process, right. No.
When you made Close Encounters, there was the idea even comes post-Watergate. There is a sense of post-Watergate was the right time for Close Encounters because America had come to begin to disbelieve in institutions. I think we thought at the time, boy, it'll never get worse than this. Yet I don't have to look at a poll. I'm positive our faith in institutions is lower than ever, certainly lower than in the post-Watergate 1970s. Does that make it a better time even to release Disclosure Day, to have buy-in from the audience that such a conspiracy could exist?
I can't speak for the entire audience because we are in an era of division where the country's divided, more divided than I can remember it in my lifetime. But there are certain things that unite us. And one of the things that unites us, one of the places we can find common ground, is our united belief that the extraordinary is possible and the impossible is possible. And I think UFO, the whole phenomenon, is something that everybody across any spectrum, culturally, politically, can agree on.
Yeah, I mean, I suspect if you took Harris voters and Trump voters and asked them, do you believe in extraterrestrial life, that it would be 50-50, that there's no distinction there.
No. I really think The Close Encounters was a much more political movie than Disclosure Day.
How come?
Because the politics are spoken of, we talk about it. And on this film, it's a character-driven piece. It's really about what is happening to this woman and why is she going through all of this and what is happening to this young man. And it doesn't really go into any of the global politics that we read about every single day. It's not really a political film.
Yeah,
although you could read into it and find the politics in it.
I definitely read into it and find the politics, but not the specific, not party politics.
It's not party politics at all.
No, but the politics of deceit and of the idea that the government is big enough and working in conjunction with a private company, which is certainly bigger now than it ever was before. That sort of conspiracy could very easily exist.
Sure. The movie really deals with who has control of information.
Right.
Who has control of the information.
Well, if you're going to make a movie about that, then I would say you've just made a political movie in some way.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
By your definition, I'm happy to accept that I have made a political movie.
Yes! That's a win. All right, two more quick things. I want to make sure I got your quote right. You said in 1977, the peak of my career will come when I make the best film I've ever made.
Did I say that?
Yeah.
Why do I say stupid things like that? Why do I get myself into a corner like that? Oh my goodness.
I'm going to accept that as an answer. So you're like, now you disavow that quote.
Yeah, I disavow that quote, because I'm no judge of what is the best movie I've ever made. I can't judge that because I'm inside the story. The only people who can evaluate that are the people who are outside the stories until those stories become part of them. And they're the ones that decide. I can't make that decision. And if I really believed that I made the best movie I could possibly make, then why would I continue, making movies aiming at a lower bar? So I can't do that.
So this may be the summation of your science fiction outlook or output, and maybe not. But you got more movies in you.
Do I have more movies in me?
Yeah. That seems like you do. That's what I'm saying. I'm taking from this, you still have more movies in you.
Well, are UFOs here?
Right.
If they are, I have more movies in me.
Well, all right. Well,
if that makes any sense.
That leads to do you believe that, this seems a crazy question.
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm asking it, but I'm asking it seriously. Like, do you think that there are aliens here? Two parts.
Okay.
Have aliens been here? And do you think they might still be here?
Well, based on the circumstantial evidence of everything that I've gathered throughout my whole life, and everybody I've listened to, and every documentary I've ever watched, and all the testimonies in Congress that I've heard, I absolutely think that they have been here, and they are here, and who knows, maybe they've always been here.
Last thing, I'm just curious about this, because the heyday of science fiction was the 50s in many ways, right? And for
Yes.
movies.
Yes.
And most of those movies dealt with the threat that these people from another planet, another galaxy,
Yes.
another universe would possess. But you right away sort of thought, well, yeah, and War of the Worlds, you've done that. We've
Yeah.
seen what could
Yeah.
happen. But the presumption is they've come a very long way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they have very sophisticated, these reports are, there's no explanation for how they're staying up
Right.
in the air. There's no propulsion. Why would more sophisticated people come here to harm us when it seems like it would be interest?
Let's put it this way. I've done both. I conceived of the series and produced with Noah Wiley, Falling Skies.
Yeah.
And, the Men in Black film series I co-produced, and War of the Worlds I directed. David Kep wrote War of the Worlds. But then there's Close Encounters, there's E.T., there's Disclosure Day. So I've sort of, and that basically is not my belief system. I thought at one point, I can make more money if they're bad, and they come down and start wrecking everything.
Right.
I can get more special effects out of destruction than I can by benign interaction. And so that side of me has a lot of fun. But although War of the Worlds was a serious metaphor for 9/11, so I take that film much more seriously.
It's a little different.
That was
It's
a metaphor.
different thing. Yeah.
It's a different thing. But my heart and my soul tell me that this isn't an aggressive off-world. There's not an intentional villain up there drawing their plans against us. I do not believe that.
That's more you. That notion is more at the
That's
core of
who I
Steven
feel
Spielberg is.
my core beliefs are, is that if they're going to come all this way, whether it's through a wormhole that may take, 3 months to get her, or whether it's a lot of light, speed of light travel time, I don't believe they would come here to essentially,
Colonize us, do us harm.
sow and reap, and basically terraform the planet into the red vines that we had in the War of the Worlds. I don't believe that. I don't think you'll use any of that last answer either.
Oh no, no, it's good. That's right.